Daniel Levy has had a fascinating conversation with Gary Neville. He's criticised the length of time it's taken for the Premier League to investigate Man City's alleged 115-plus charges. This is what Daniel Levy, the Spurs chairman, had to say about how long the case has taken.
I think it would be really unfair of me to talk about another club within the Premier League. All I would say, it's going through a process which I think has gone on for far too long, and it needs to be brought for the good of the game to a conclusion. And I think it was the FA that should have brought us all together. I agree, it's unfortunate that we have managed to resolve things internally rather than really the recourse to the lawyers, because the lawyers are going to earn a lot of money out of this.
It is interesting there, isn't it? Because it does say a lot, but then also doesn't say very much as well.
Yeah, I mean, it was, the whole thing was a bit like that. I mean, I think for Spurs fans in particular, he said almost nothing and showcased the stadium that we've all known about for the last 5 years. I mean, it's not just opened. So I thought it was a bit of a bizarre interview. No, but it just didn't get to anything. We had Gary Neville's sort of interesting bits about the football regulator, but even that was based on false references to budgets and things. I mean, they talked about the independent football regulator having a budget of £40 million a year.
That's not true.
And how that wasn't going to be enough. Well, it's a quarter of that.
Yeah, it's 10 million.
I mean, it's 10 million a year. So how they think this football regulator is going to all of a sudden change everything with £10 million a year is a bit surprising.
I think I think the new chair is an interesting character. I think he's a solid individual, David Cogan.
Oh, I thought he was fantastic in his interview in the select committee. I think they are very lucky to have somebody of his credentials and calibre as the chair.
Yep.
So at least they've got that.
Yep.
And even that, the government almost screwed that up by making it political. And this is part of the problem in having government involvement in a regulator.
Absolutely.
Is that you have political influence,
Yes,
even where you've got the best possible person that you could reasonably expect to be the chairman.
Absolutely.
But I mean, just in terms of
Levy.
what Levy said about the City situation.
Well, we've been saying, isn't it? We know the process has taken too long.
Yes, of course, but it's a bit rich for one of the instigators and the complainants that I suspect started the whole process around the case.
Yeah,
it's a bit rich to then complain about the length of the process.
No, that's not right. I mean,
hold one thing to start it, but there's another thing to say speed it up.
No, that's not right. And the fact that Tottenham and Levy might have been one of the leading voices that felt that these things should be investigated doesn't mean that the process shouldn't be better.
Well, sort of, except you have to understand what you're alleging. So if you go round, I mean, look, there's different ways of managing the case, I think, which is the point that you're making, and the point that I assume.
And the point we made the other day about the engagement of the independent panel and the timelines they should work in.
So manage. So fair enough. Manage it in a different way, but you are talking about something which, in any situation, is going to take multiple years.
Oh, agreed.
Right? So there's no way around that.
Agreed.
So if you wanted, as Daniel Levy seems to be suggesting, if you wanted a process that was going to be kept very tight, investigated behind closed doors, and then negotiated either by the FA, although I don't really understand what the angle is for the FA, but and then investigated and settled.
Well, he's talking about regulation and governance of the game, and he really there.
Okay, so if you wanted it done in that way, behind closed doors, then unfortunately the rules are not set up at all for dealing with situations like that. So we've seen even admitted cases take a long time. Look at the Chelsea situation with these off-book payments.
Yep.
That situation has been ongoing, I think, for 3 years since they admitted it themselves. So that there's no question of whether they did it. They say they did it, and yet we still don't even have a charge. So if that's charged, there's then a process, presumably another, 6 months, 1 year. So that in itself is going to go on, and that's a situation that's been admitted. The reality is, in all of these sorts of situations, if you have and you go round making allegations of serious wrongdoing by individuals and by clubs, you have to allow the process to take the time to fully investigate and to prosecute any charges. It's just the nature of the beast.
I do want to get your take on another thing he said in that interview, although you said it wasn't the greatest thing. He also claimed that related party sponsorship is one of the biggest threats, as clubs that are owned by nation states can do deals with themselves. Again, not quite correct, maybe the wording of it, but he's got a point there. You look at the situation with Darwin Núñez, obviously being sold to a PIF club in Al Hilal, and Liverpool about to buy.
Daniel's got a better argument than that, and better arguments than that, because associated party transactions in a global world, we opened up the world to be global in business terms for the Premier League. You tell me which associated party transactions you like and which ones you don't like them, because you do business with people. And you do business with business that you're invested in, and you can look at most transactions in the world and they're indexed to one another.
But people don't want to look at football like that, do they? People don't. Fans still don't look at football as businesses like that.
Well, they are. And what they look, I mean, they do to some extent, because they understand the ramifications of buying footballers and selling footballers and demanding that we got the best managers. So they understand that to build these wonderful cathedrals and have these wonderful players performing them and cost money, they just don't really want to worry about the machinations. And I understand that. And there's a traditional football fan that just wants to know how good a footballer is. But it has changed.
Well, the Liverpool situation...
Hence the reasons why he's there.
Yeah, football expert. But you have to remember, I mean, the Liverpool Núñez situation is a good example because, first of all, they're not connected to PIF, as far as we know. And yet Liverpool are very happy to take the money from PIF, from Saudi Arabia, to sell Núñez at a probably inflated value compared to what they can get in Europe. Very happy to take that money. And as Spurs would be if they could get an offer for, I don't know, Richarlison, say. I mean, Daniel Levy will sell to Saudi Arabia tomorrow if that offer comes in. So, and neither of those clubs are related parties. Then you've got the situation where Daniel Levy, maybe he was using the wrong terminology. But
isn't the related party there, Stefan, that Liverpool are going to sell Darwin Núñez to a PIF-owned club?
Yeah.
And are then trying to buy Isak from a PIF-owned club.
Okay, but what's the suggestion? Are we saying that there's a conspiracy between Liverpool, PIF and Newcastle to move money around? Surely not. I mean, surely we're not suggesting that, because I would think that there's no evidence to suggest that there is some kind of arrangement between that benefits ultimately Liverpool in getting the player that they want. I don't think that is the suggestion. So I think it happens to be slightly surprising, but actually arguably argues that there is a division within PIF between the actions that they take in the Saudi League and the actions that they take for Newcastle. It actually suggests separation, not conspiracy, I would argue. But because I can't see any other way. I mean, obviously, if you don't want to sell Isak, the last thing you do is put Liverpool in funds by buying a player who is probably going to go for 20 million above his market rate, his European market rate, to Saudi Arabia. Because who is going to buy Núñez if Saudi Arabia don't buy Núñez?
You're right, but Liverpool, again, this is just fees that we don't know there. Liverpool are reportedly willing to sell Núñez, or Al Hilal want to buy him for nearly 90 million. That's an overinflated price, isn't it?
What it's making.
It feels that way, doesn't it? So there's only two scenarios. Well, not only two. The two scenarios are there's some kind of clever conspiracy where they inflate the price for Isak by paying a higher price for Núñez, and the money just goes right. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. I mean,
it's a consequence of the transactions that are done previously in terms of the nature of the business that we've set up, which is a global investment into sport. That's what it is.
Yeah, and people are happy to take the money when it suits them and happy to complain about it when it doesn't.
Yeah. Indeed. Stefan Borson, fantastic for coming in. Thank you very much.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.